Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Rhea Ripley has made it clear that she is a massive fan of horror films, and one of them is Terrifier. The former WWE Women's World Champion had the opportunity to attend Silver Scream Con this weekend, which allowed her to share the stage with Art the Clown from the Terrifier films, who is played by David Howard Thornton. Ripley was attacked by the clown on the stage in front of a watching crowd before being killed in what was a dream-come-true moment for Mommy. There was a tussle between the two stars before Art took Ripley's labubu, which led to him being slapped, and a physical altercation then ensued. She later shared on her Instagram page that despite the attack, they were still friends, so it seems that she has no hard feelings, in the same way Liv Morgan was able to forgive Chucky when she was killed by the horror film star. Rhea Ripley expected to be on WWE Raw tomorrow night. Rhea Ripley is expected to be part of this week's episode of Raw since she is still part of a major storyline with Io Sky and Asuka. The women picked up a new enemy in Nikki Bella last week on Raw, and now it seems that she has joined forces with Ripley and could take on Asuka and Kairi Sane at the upcoming WrestleApalooza event. Io Sky will be taking on Stephanie Vacker for the vacant WWE Women's World Championship this weekend, but her damage control stablemates have caused a number of issues in her friendship with Rhea Ripley in recent weeks, and it appears that they could cost her the title at WrestleApalooza as well. Asuka's impending heel turn appears to be a hot topic of conversation in WWE at present. The air backstage at Monday Night Raw was a familiar symphony of chaos. Roadies shouted, steel cases rumbled across concrete floors, and the electric hum of a live broadcast was a constant undercurrent. At the heart of this storm, as always, was the Judgment Day. And at the heart of the Judgment Day was her, Rhea Ripley. Clad in black leather and spikes, the Women's World Championship slung over her shoulder like a conquered spoil, she was the apex predator in a building full of them. Mommy is on top, she'd just declared to a flustered interviewer, her voice a low, Australian growl that promised both dominance and pain. Dirty Dominic Mysterio stood beside her, beaming like a proud puppy. Damian Priest and Finn Balor, the grizzled veterans of their dark faction, flanked them, nodding in solemn agreement. For them, the world was simple. The Judgment Day runs Raw, and Mommy runs the Judgment Day. But as they swaggered back toward their private locker room, a subtle dissonance cut through the noise. A flicker in the overhead fluorescent lights, so quick it was barely noticeable. Then, a sound, faint and out of place, the playful, tinny melody of a child's music box, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Did you hear that?" Finn asked, his head cocked. Rhea scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Probably some garbage from catering. Let's go. Mommy's thirsty." They continued down the long corridor, but the atmosphere had shifted. The usual backstage hustle seemed to thin out, the loud noises becoming muffled, as if they were walking through water. Then they saw it. At the far end of the hall, leaning against the wall, was a solitary figure. Dressed in a filthy, monochromatic clown costume with a tiny black top hat, he was unnervingly still. He held a large, black trash bag. "Who's the circus freak?" Damian muttered, his hand instinctively going to the championship belt he carried. As they drew closer, the figure didn't move. He just watched them, a wide, silent grin stretched across his white-painted face. It wasn't a happy grin. It was a grotesque, predatory slash, smeared with what looked disturbingly like dried blood. His eyes were black pits of malevolent glee. Rhea, never one to be intimidated, strode forward. "You lost, mate? The circus left town. And you're in Mommy's way." The clown, Art, slowly tilted his head. He gave a small, mocking wave. Then, with a fluid, unnatural motion, he pushed himself off the wall and simply ambled away, disappearing around a corner without a sound. "Weirdo," Dom whispered, clinging closer to Rhea. They found their locker room door defaced. A crude smiley face, drawn in a thick, black, tar-like substance, dripped down the purple logo of the Judgment Day. An unsettling chill finally pierced Rhea's ironclad confidence. This wasn't a prank from another superstar. This felt different. Vile. "All right, that's it," Rhea snarled, her protective instincts flaring. "You three stay here. I'm gonna find this clown and rearrange his face." Ignoring their protests, she stormed off in the direction Art had gone. The corridors grew progressively darker and quieter. The complex, usually teeming with life, was now a labyrinth of silent, steel doors and flickering emergency lights. The air grew cold, carrying the faint, coppery scent of old blood. She found herself in a disused storage area, a graveyard of old ring props and forgotten promotional materials. And there he was. Art the Clown stood in the center of the room, illuminated by a single, swinging bare bulb. He was rummaging through his black trash bag, the crinkling of the plastic echoing loudly in the oppressive silence. He pulled out a small, rusty horn and gave it a pathetic, silent squeeze. Then, he looked up at Rhea, his grin widening impossibly. "You've got a lot of nerve, you freak," Rhea said, her fists clenching. She was the eradicator, the nightmare of the women's division. This silent mime was nothing. "You think you can scare me? You have no idea who you're messing with." Art simply shrugged, then mimed tipping his tiny hat. He reached back into his bag and pulled out a hacksaw. The rusted teeth gleamed in the dim light. That was it. Rhea charged, tackling him with the force of a freight train. But it was like hitting a wall made of uncanny flesh. He didn't grunt, he didn't yield. He just absorbed the impact, his sickening grin never leaving his face. She threw a punch, a stiff, well-trained strike that would have dropped any other person. Art's head snapped to the side, but then slowly, mechanically, it snapped back, his neck cracking audibly. He giggled, a wheezing, silent laugh that was more terrifying than any scream. The fight was a brutal, one-sided affair, but not in Rhea's favor. Her strength, her power, her entire arsenal of devastating moves meant nothing. He was a force of pure, sadistic nature. He moved with a dancer's grace and a butcher's intent. He dodged her riptide, sidestepped a big boot, and answered with a flick of a scalpel he'd produced from his sleeve, leaving a thin, red line on her arm. She backed away, breathing heavily, a foreign feeling seeping into her veins, fear. True, primal fear. This wasn't a wrestler. This wasn't an opponent. This was a monster. He came at her again, this time with a feral intensity. The hacksaw was a blur. She fought back, landing blows that felt like they were connecting with stone. But he was relentless, a silent engine of malice. He cornered her against a stack of old steel chairs. For a moment, their eyes locked. In his, she didn't see anger or hatred. She saw a gleeful, bottomless void, an entity that found her pain to be the most amusing show on earth. Meanwhile, back in the locker room, the Judgment Day was growing frantic. The lights in their room had died completely, and Rhea's angry shouts had been replaced by a terrifying silence. Led by Priest, they burst out into the darkened hallway. They followed the faint, coppery smell to the storage area. They smashed the door open to a horrific tableau. The room was a wreck. But of Rhea and the clown, there was no sign. There was only a single item left in the center of the room, directly under the swinging light bulb. It was Rhea Ripley's Women's World Championship. The black leather strap was unblemished, but the gold plates were smeared with a grotesque, bloody smiley face. The broadcast feed on monitors throughout the arena suddenly cut to static. When the image returned, it wasn't of a live show. It was a shaky, handheld shot from a dark room. The feed flickered, showing only the silent, grinning face of Art the Clown. He looked directly into the camera, held up a piece of Rhea's signature spiked wristband, and then gave a jaunty, final wave before the screen went black. Rhea Ripley was gone. The world of WWE was left in stunned, horrified silence. The commentators were speechless. The Judgment Day stood frozen, their leader vanished, their invincibility shattered. A new, far more sinister form of evil had just made its debut. Mommy had been powerful, a force of nature. But she had just been killed by a walking, silent, supernatural apocalypse. And on the wall behind her championship belt, dripping slowly to the floor, were two crudely painted words. Art was here.